What do you need to do after book 4 in the series doesn't really grab you that well? Let the midnight special shine a light on me. Destiny is a lie. Destiny is justification for atrocity. It is the means by which murderers armored themselves against reprimand. It is a word intended to stand in the place of ethics, denying all moral context. We have a talent for disguising greed under the cloak of freedom. As for past acts of depravity, we prefer to ignore those. Progress, after all, means to look ever forward, and whatever we have trampled in our wake is best forgotten. Chaos needs no allies, for it dwells like a poison in every one of us. Do not seek to find hope among your leaders. They are repositories of poison. Their interest in you extends only so far as their ability to control you. We talk of progress, but what we really desire is the perpetuation of the present. Everything worth fighting for is gained without fighting. Fear bespeaks of wisdom, recognition of responsibility. When one does not know what one seeks, caution is the surest armor. Death is every mortal's shadow, his true shadow. And time is its servant, spinning that shadow slowly round until what stretched behind one now stretches before him. Civilization after civilization, it is the same. The world falls to tyranny with a whisper. Tyrants and emperors rise and fall. Civilizations burgeon, then die, but there is always casters of nets, and tillers of the soil and herders in the pastures. We are where civilization begins. And when it ends, we are there to begin it again. Hey, what's up, bookworms and bonecasters? Mike back to talk a little more Malazan today as we are moving along through this read-along with 2004's Midnight Tides. This is the 5th book in the series, and like I kind of joked about there in the intro, book 4 was, so this one was kind of like, all right, what can we do to kind of liven things up? What are we hoping for? Well, it's another reset. We got another new continent, another new cast, third time in the series now that he's done this. So did it work or not? Well, we are going to discuss it here like usual. This will be a non-spoiler review, guys. If you want spoilers, I have done almost an hour of spoiler talk on the channel, and you can find that rather easily. I like to continue to do these standard reviews because this is a series with a high tap out rate, and you have people struggling, being like, all right, is it going to be more like the last book that I didn't really care for? Should I keep going or not? And I feel like this is a good way to let them know, hey, should you keep going or not? So obviously I'm not the end all be all on that decision. That's going to depend on you, but I'm going to give you my opinion and why I think it might work for you. So book 4 was kind of a downer. Is this one the one that kind of turned things around? Well, we are going to talk about it. Let's begin, like usual, guys, with what is it about? After decades of warfare, the tribes of the Tist Eater have at last united under the warlock king of Heroth. There is a peace, but it has been exacted at a terrible price. A pact made with a hidden power whose motives are at best suspect and at worst deadly. To the south, the expansionist kingdom of Lether, eager to fulfill its long prophesied renaissance as an empire reborn, has enslaved all of its less civilized neighbors. All, that is, save one, the Tist Eater. And it must be only a matter of time before they too fall, either beneath the suffocating weight of gold or by slaughter at the edge of a sword. Yet as the two sides gather for a pivotal treaty, neither truly wants. Ancient forces are awakening. For the impending struggle between these two peoples is but a pale reflection of a far more profound primal battle, a confrontation with the still raw wound of an old betrayal, and the craving for revenge at its seething heart. And guys, that leads us to 2004, the halfway point of the series, Midnight Tides. Now we're going to begin as usual, guys, with what makes it good or bad. And I think the good, without a doubt, in this book is the Singar family storyline. Guys, this is the storyline I have been waiting for this entire series. This was the most locked into a Malazan book I have been since The Chain of Dogs. This storyline is truly magnificent, one of the best that I have read in high fantasy. It really is just that good. There's so many themes of family and betrayal and things I think that will really just resonate with just about everyone in many, many ways. And it's just amazing because I didn't think that I had any interest in learning about the Tist Eater. I'm always like, give me more Talani Moss, give me more Tistandi, things like that. Give me more Kachain Shema. But with this, it's like, wow, I don't really think I have. This might be the most interested I've been in any of the ancient races at this point because it's just so well done. It's mainly because of the Singar family here and what goes on around them. It's just truly, truly magnetic stuff. Themes of, like I said, family that I think that really a lot of fantasy isn't able to do well. And I don't think that this series has done it extremely well, at least not up to this good so far up in the series. And I think it's just, the problem I had with book 4 was I never felt like I really connected with those armies. And they're like, okay, there's all that time you have waiting, and people are like, oh, well, it's building camaraderie and stuff. I never really felt that. With this, I feel it. So much so that when there's a scene when just these 4 brothers are together and they're just kind of sharing like a last kind of, drink before this big war starts. And it's just maybe my favorite thing that he's written yet. It's just so powerful, so spectacular because I care about this family so much. So he hit a grand slam in this one with the Singar family. I cannot wait to read more about them in this series going forward. The ones that may or may not make it through this book, it's amazing because I think Troll in the last book, in the prologue of the last one, didn't move the needle for me at all. I really, even when I did that review, all I kind of talked about was Onrak. I didn't even talk about Troll because I felt like it was just kind of an afterthought. Other than wanting to know how he got into the situation, I didn't really care. Now he's a top 10 Malazan character for me. So, wow, what a change one book can make. And it almost feels like if this had been written in a different order, maybe, I might have felt differently. But I'm still anxious to know, how he got... I've got my ideas based off this book, but I'm still anxious to know the answers to that prologue. And this made me want to go back and read that prologue of House of Change. So you can see right there why the guys that always yell, you've done a reread, this is going to be way more powerful for you. You can see where they're coming from. With me, guys, it's just a time thing. I don't see myself ever having time to do that. But yeah, just great, great thing. And the only thing he's really taught by in this book is Rulad. Rulad might be the most layered character in this entire series. And people have asked me, what do you mean by layered? I mean, like, he isn't exactly what meets the eye. Every time you start thinking one thing about him, something happens. You're like, oh, I had read that all wrong. And then you'll be like, okay, maybe he's not so bad. And it's like, oh no, he's a dick. So you really go back and forth, and just such a unique spin on a character like this. And again, if you come from a family of brothers, I only have one brother. If you're one of them that comes to like 3 or 4 brothers, I think this book is going to just be a smash hit for you. You're going to love so many things because I'm not one of them, I have to identify with something in my life while I'm reading a fantasy book. No, I want to be swept away. I don't really care about stuff like that. But when you find some of those things that do hit, they do have a lasting impact on you. And with Rulad, it's the thing about, I was a younger brother, and I understood you would do anything to impress your older brother, right? And that's kind of what he does in here. So you have empathy for him, you have hate for him, you have you feel bad for the guy many times, and you also are like, okay, well, you made your bed, you might need to sleep in it. So what a character, And while he might not be the most likable character, he's definitely one of my favorite in the series just because of how much I enjoy this journey he's going on. I want to know what is going to happen with it. So yeah, guys, the Singar family alone are why you should read this book, I think. The book very much to me, like I said, is about family, especially about the bond or the dysfunction between brothers, because we do have 2 sets of brothers here. And you do see that they're all not on the same level, I guess you think. Not just through their father's eyes, but or their parents' eyes, rather. It's one of those things more of, you sometimes you're kind of, like I said, dysfunction. You're not really in a great place with your sibling. There's lots of people, me and my brother, we weren't even really speaking terms until we got older, because we were 6 years apart in age, so we didn't really have a lot of things that we could talk about. As we got older and matured, we got, I got a little bit closer and things like that. But you can see a lot of things with your personal life, like I said, between these different groups of brothers here, both the Bedek brothers and the Singar brothers. It really, really does just crush it. He really does He's a slugger in this one, guys. Erikson just really nailed this theme, I think, with this. And we get a few more answers, I think, in this one about the crippled god. Now, if the crippled god, judging off of the last name of the book in this series, if the crippled god is the overarching villain of the season, I think it's an incredible slow build. He's doing it well. I mean, this is like Thanos for 10 movies, kind of waiting. Like, you're getting a little bit more and more and more. You're getting to know a little bit more. You're getting a lot more questions, but you're getting some answers. And it's slowly building them up. Nothing here is happening too quick, and I'm here for it. I love it. I love that we're getting just a little bit more of him each book. And with this one, again, you get lots of new things. I think another thing about this book is that this is the first time you get the real the in-court fantasy politics like you would get in a traditional fantasy tale. I feel like you've had some, but never quite on this level before. And yeah, it's another. He just hits a smash hit on this one. He really does. At first, it's going to seem kind of overwhelming because again, he's throwing characters at you like it's nobody's business. And as always, he expects you to just roll with it. And just roll with it, guys, because yeah, I got frustrated in that first bit, which I'll talk about. But it is a lot. Again, at first, it's no different than the other Malazan books, guys. You're going to get a lot of new characters. You're going to be like, what? But again, his politics are really, really good. I mean, like Song of Ice and Fire level good. So that's a very, very high compliment for me. I think you're going to like that quite a bit. You do learn a little bit more about the Crimson Guard. You get the introduction of a really awesome character named Iron Bars. Stupid name, but awesome character. Awesome character. Yeah, you talk about stupid names. Let's talk about Feather Witch. But again, these are all well-written characters, so I don't care if their name is A, B, C, D, E. He's doing a great job with them. And I hadn't seen the Crimson Guard, since book 1, so I was interested if this is ever coming back. I'll be interested to see if we get more of them after this book, or if this is really, hey, you've got to read more of the Esselmont books to understand the Crimson Guard stuff. I don't know, but color me intrigued. I liked what I did see about them. I think the best thing about this book is it has the best balance between exposition and action of any book in the series. It always feels like his books have been very back-heavy with the action and front, middle-heavy with the exposition, the lore, the fever dreams, whatever you want to call them, all those things, the visions. With this one, I feel like it's a really proper balance between the two. You never feel bogged down. Okay, there's too much action. I need a break. Okay, there's too much exposition. I need something to happen. Perfect balance. It really does feel like a screenplay or something. Like it's really just that well paced all throughout. And I feel like that's been a problem with a couple of Malazan books. It really has just been a pacing problem, and it's perfect here. I think he has not done the pacing more perfect in a Malazan book yet. And the battles, dude, they continue to be some of the best in epic fantasy, some that I have ever seen. It is just epic stuff. I mean, there's so much going on. And I think I like this final assault, this battle here. I like this better than I like the last one of Memories of Ice, because Memories of Ice, I said the problem with that was you had so many different viewpoints. Every other paragraph, it was jumping to a new character, and sometimes you didn't even know you were a new character. With this, I feel like the character balance is done just well enough that you're switching between like 3 different viewpoints, or 3 different groups, I guess, that are going on at the same time, and it's really, really done well. Very cinematic, very, very cinematic, and there's just some boss moments in that fight, and the final sequence in the throne room is some of the crazy. I'm talking, this is end of a series level good stuff here. So again, when it comes to battles, guys, no complaints at all. This guy continues to just crush it with that. I think there's some big reveals about some characters that might be a little more than meets the eye. There are some people. I've always been I'm along for the ride. I never try to figure these things out, especially when I'm binge reading like this and I don't have years between books. So there's some people that say, oh yeah, I figured that out. I didn't figure either of these out. There's a couple of big reveals in here that I didn't figure out either of them. There's only one in hindsight. I can say, oh, okay, I can see there was some tease about the other one. I was like, wow, okay. But like I said in that, guys, I wasn't even able to put together that Karuli and Karul was the same person. So I wasn't going to put this one together either. But yeah, some real ones that really just, whoa, didn't see that coming. But there is kind of a Warren's explanation in this one. Sorta. A character just flat out asks, what are Warrens? And instead of getting the non-answer you usually get, the character actually tries to explain it. It still, completely missed me. There were a lot of people on the read-along in the Discord that were like, oh my god, I finally understand Warrens. And I'm like, yeah, me too. I don't know. Guys, with the Warrens, I'm just kind of like, I'm not maybe sure the characters completely understand it, so it's okay if I don't completely understand it. I'm just rolling with it as it is. But again, another one in here that I love to death. And as an advocate and someone who has learned from Frank Herbert his whole life and has really believed in the teachings of Frank Herbert, I really feel like Erikson does go all in on the theme of do not trust leaders. They are just using you, and as soon as they don't need you anymore, they could give a shit about you. And you really are just a means to an end. That is something that I think has always been a big part of what Frank Herbert wrote about. And I think I could see that influence of Frank Herbert in a lot of Steven Erikson stuff that I've read so far. So again, with that one, that's always a theme that I'm going to be behind. I have always been of that belief because I believed in what Frank Herbert wrote resonated with me so much on that thing about do not trust leaders, because they are not doing this for you. They are doing it for them. And blindly trusting leaders is always going to end poorly. And I'll talk about that a lot more when I review Dune later on in September, you guys. Let's get to a couple of the bad things here. I don't have a ton this time. I know last time it felt like it was kind of a lot, and a lot of people got discouraged about the series, and I apologize for that. These are just my opinions, guys. It still has a slow start, and I think that this can really overwhelm new readers, and you kind of need it because he is introducing so many characters again. I mean, like, there's a couple of familiar faces, but not much. Like I said, you'll know Troll, obviously, if you've read up to this far. But it's a lot of new characters, especially in the Letheri court. A ton of new characters, and you're like, okay, I don't know. This one might be related to this person, but they're in a different part of town. They're over here, but this one's like exiled, and this one thinks this, and yeah, it's tough at first. As with all of these books, it always has that kind of start. But guys, trust me, it picks up. I think if you don't really care for the economic side of the time, right, that's budding right before a war, it might be a struggle for you. Look, I work in finance, and for me, it just felt like I was at work. So I wasn't wild about those, but I know it is a necessary part of talking about war. So I'm cool with it. It didn't exactly fall flat for me or anything, but it was one of my lesser favorite parts of this book, and a book that I really, really enjoyed quite a bit. And again, guys, sexual assault is very prevalent in this. On both genders. It really is on both sides. It does happen to both men and women in this series, and it does happen in this book. And again, these are fictional characters. It doesn't bother me as much as it bothers other people. I know that this is a very, very normal part of wartime. It's going to happen. I get that. I understand the people that are kind of noping out on it. It's not series breaking for me. It's not because I'm heartless. It's because these aren't real characters, and I'm fine with that. This isn't a documentary, so I've never really let it bother me that way. I know that bad things happen, and I'm never, ever going to be that guy like, well, as an author, you have a responsibility not to write about those things. I'm not the person to tell an author what to do at all. I'm just saying they didn't bother me, but they might bother you, because I thought it was worse in last book, because we were dealing with a child. But it's still just as bad, every bit as bad in this as it was in Deadhouse Gates, as it was in Memories of Ice. It's going to keep happening, I think. So I feel like if you're just waiting for that to get past it, I don't think it's going to happen in this series. So maybe it isn't for you. So there's something to consider there if that stuff does bother you. It's very much in the forefront of this book again. But let's go ahead and move along to why you should read it, guys. I think this might be, like I said, the most balanced Malazan book yet. Never truly felt a drag at any time in this story. There was some things that I wasn't liking as much as others, but I was never to a point where I was like, okay, I want to put this down and not pick it up for a few more days. I think the new characters and the old characters mesh very, very well together. Mostly new characters. There are a couple of returning ones that you've seen before. Not many, again, as you are on a new continent. But I think that by the end of it, just like you did when you first got to Memories of Ice, you first started Deadhouse Gates, he's like, who are all these new characters? I think you'll grow to be fine after a while if you give it some time. If you're wanting some more backroom politics, again, he's going to give you that this time. Much more in a traditional kind of fantasy way, even if it is a little more vulgar than most series we get. But some jaw-dropping reveals, like I said, and just incredibly, incredibly layered characters. We're talking onions of layers here. Just so good. And guys, this is the halfway point. If you believe what the Malazan veterans are telling you, convergence is at hand. So I feel like this is the point where you can decide, is this series going to be for me or not? Because this is, from what I've been led to believe, the last big introduction to new lands and new characters. couple of final thoughts here. This was just the book that I needed after House of Chains. I didn't hate that book, but it was my least favorite so far. And it did have me a little bit of going from, oh, okay, well, I can't wait to see what happens in the next book, to being like, oh, man, it's time for the next Malazan book. I'd rather be reading something I'm enjoying more. So it's got a lot of people that turned against me on the read-along. A lot of veterans that think that I hate the series now. No, it's just, when you do a ranking, and when you're ranking the first 4 books, something's got to come in fourth, right? And House of Chains came in fourth. And I felt like I was very fair with my criticism on that. I don't feel like I've ever been ugly about it at all. But this is the book that has kind of re-energized my attitude towards this world. I am so much more compelled now than I was at the end of book 4 to keep going, and I want to see what's going to happen. We're starting Bone Hunters here on October the 1st, and I cannot stop thinking about it. Despite the frustrating start, I think when this one, once I got to about page 200 through, what is the 900-page book, so you're like, well, 200 pages is a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. Not for a Malazan book, it isn't. But once I got to book 2 in this, it just took off like a rocket, and it did not stop. I think the ending of book 2 in this is the best chapter in this entire series. And again, I just can't say how much the Sengar family storyline is just the best I've read in this world. And I hope to see a lot more of them in the back half of this series. And look, guys, if convergence is truly at hand, I'm excited. I will admit, I did look at the Dramatis, the listing of characters in the Bone Hunters, and I'm like, wow, I know like 70% of these characters already. So that feels like it'll be much easier approach this go around. And many have told me they think, by listening to my likes and dislikes this far, that they think Bone Hunters is going to be my favorite. So I'm looking forward to it, guys. If you haven't caught up, that's fine. These videos will always be here. That's what I'm saying. If you're not able to keep up with the speed we're doing on the read along, hey, that's great. Read at your own pace. The videos will always be here, and I'll still probably be willing to talk about them. So, guys, that was Midnight Tides. What did you think? Did you enjoy it as much as I did? Did it not quite miss the mark? Were you upset that there was another new content? Or were you wild about it? Drop in the comments and let me know, guys, and I will talk to you there.